When it comes to UV unwrapping, in class we've mainly been doing more man-made objects like tables, chairs, that kind of stuff. We haven't really been doing anything in terms of organic material like say this tree here or the Morty character on the right. And most of us have been using the simple cylindrical planar options, and some of you have been probably using the automatic just to kind of get a quick UV unwrap done. I am going to judge you if you've been using it. I will say that. But I'm not going to go into that. What I'm going to be talking about today is the concept of seams. Now, have a look at a pair of trousers, or say your own shirt, for instance. You'll notice that there are seams in your shirt. That's where the two fabrics have been brought together and sewn together. It's kind of the same concept here. Basically, when it comes to UV wrapping, we have to select areas which the image comes together, or the UV sets come together, kind of like seams. So we need to figure out where we want to put these seams and how to hide them from the player. Seams are a really good way of working with more complex objects. So if I was going for this tree, for instance, what I would do is, rather than just using the cylindrical mapping options, a really nice and easy way of doing this could be just using the planar mapping options and just selecting some of these faces here. So let's select all these here, projecting the Z-axis, and go to the UV editor with the shaded UV textures on. So we can see we have some overlaying UVs at the moment, as it is purple. What I can do is I can select an area of this object, so possibly this particular edge loop here, and in the UV editor I can hold down shift, right mouse button, and the cut tool. So you'll see now you have like a really thick line. This is to indicate that we've cut these edges and now they're separate, so it's basically created a seam. Now that's not the end of doing the UV seams. With this organic stuff, what we can do is select the whole object and go to unfold and unfold the image, like so. The unfold tries to essentially unfold your UV shells with the least amount of distortion possible, and you can see it's done a fantastic job on this already. If I go to the checkered texture option here, and obviously it's at a slight angle, but you can see that it's pretty uniform and it hasn't got that much disorientation to it. I mean, again, yeah, these squares are a bit of a slight angle, but when it comes to texturing this in, say, Substance Painter, for instance, it's not going to be that much of a big deal, because again, you'll be painting over it, and it will really cover up those particular seams there as well. So that's a really good option to use, rather than just using the basic cylindrical mapping options. You know, just cutting a seam and then unfolding it, smoothing it out to get the least amount of distortion possible. So you can keep pressing the unfold tool, or even the optimize tool as well, to try to get the least amount of distortion possible. So as we can see here, I have planar mapped this Morty head. You can see that the front seems quite uniform, but as we go along, obviously there's some stretched aspects to this UV, and also of course there are overlapping UV shells. So how do we sort this out? Well, just like with the tree, we need to add in some seams around the model in order to unfold it to get the least amount of distortion possible. Again, a lot of people do this with skulls as well. If I get a quick example of a skull UV map, you'll see that it's never just about using basic planars. It will be essentially cutting up the skull in certain parts and unfolding it into something like this. So it's a bit hard to see this image, but if I just zoom in a little bit. So that's how you usually see like a skull or a head, for instance. It's not just like a case of, oh, just using planar maps or cylindrical mapping options. No, they will find a certain area of the skull which they'll just cut and then unfold to get the least amount of distortion possible, and then texture it in something, say like Mudbox, ZBrush, or Substance Painter. Right, so with this head here, I'm gonna cut it up to add a seam. So I might just put a seam here. So I'll just add that there and then cut it. Once that's cut, I'm gonna just select it and then unfold. Oops, guess that didn't work as well as I hoped. Let's try that again. So I'll probably try doing the whole head, so the whole thing. Oh, let's unfold. Just gotta make sure you select the right edge before you do these things. It can be quite difficult sometimes to find the right edge loop to use. So let's go with this one here, cut, and then I'm gonna just unfold it. Okay, that's much better. Might look extremely bizarre right now, but again, this is something that will be semi-decent for use in texturing software such as Woodbox or Substance Painter. But there are some issues right now with the eyes, so you can see there's some overlapping right here. So when it comes to doing seams, it's always a good idea to put them in areas that aren't too obvious in case there's any sort of misaligning in the textures. I might have to do some with the eyes, with the eye sockets. So I'm gonna do one there and do one there, and then in here I'm gonna cut those, and then I'm gonna unfold this again. So you can see this is much more uniform now, something that's much more appropriate for use. And then with the eye sockets, I'm going to unfold those as well. If I go to the checkered textures, you can see again this is much more uniform than before. Again, not as much distortion as before. You may want to close these gaps here as well, so I'm going to sew those together and just unfold, optimize as well. So yeah, it's quite obvious here with the seams as well. You can see they're not really lining up appropriately. That's why I always put seams in areas which can't be found, although here this might be quite obvious. And you may want to do one for the mouth as well if you wanted to. Like, you could possibly do some in the inside of the mouth, so I could cut that. Unfold this again, for instance. You can see now, got a nice sort of flat face there, and I can unfold the mouth a little bit as well, optimize it. And there you go. You can now see that we've got a fully UV unwrapped Morty head that can do our own custom Morty textures for Rick and Morty if you wanted. But hopefully you can see the benefit of doing something like this. It really does help with more organic materials rather than just using sort of like the plain mapping options in left, right, up and down. You won't really get that a lot with more organic materials. This is probably the best way of doing it. It is a lot of experimentation. I'll also put a link to another video from lynda.com about seams as well, which is well worth a watch. But do try it out. If you are doing organic material, putting UV seams in an object is probably the best way to do it, not just using just a simple planar and cylindrical mapping options. This is also a really good technique to use as well.